Teacher in New Hampshire facing criminal charges now for allegedly lying on her resume. This is 29-year-old Raven Rossmiller. She was released on $500 bail after being charged with false academic documentation. She allegedly told a daycare center in Henniker, New Hampshire, that she had certifications and training to be a teacher there. However, that wasn't true. She was hired for the position, reportedly did not have the certification that she claimed, and that wasn't her first teaching job. Rossmiller taught kindergarten in Windham from 2005 to April of this year. And this brings us to the overall question, should lying on your resume be considered criminal? Joining us now is Philip Gordon. He is an employment attorney with Gordon Law Group. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
It is common for people to lie on their resumes. However, it's rare to have it become criminal.
Yes.
Correct?
Very rare.
Why did it become this extreme? Not in this particular case, but in the other cases.
I can imagine it becoming extreme when employers or individuals are dealing in certified fields like doctors or lawyers or other individuals where there's potential liability for individuals. They could hurt somebody, but in most circumstances the pain is not physical, it's mostly financial.
You know, it also begs the question though, in these economic times, and it's tough out there right now, desperate times call for desperate measures, and I think there are a lot of people out there doing it because they just want a job. They want to be the one to get the job, and that gets them ahead. But you never recommend that.
No, we never recommend that. Now, oftentimes, because really what it is, it's really a breach of trust. You start off with a company and you're just there fresh, and within months they find out that, in fact, you've lied in your resume. And that calls into question the entire course, the history of an individual employee.
Let's be realistic here. How many companies really, when you hand in your resume, do they go through, do they call the colleges and say, hey, did this person go to this college? Do they call your former employers? How much does this happen? I
mean, it used to be rare that companies do that. The reality of it is, in this day and age, though, there are companies now who are, their sole purpose, their business is background checking. So companies can hire background checking organizations to do the background checking for them, run Corey checks, to run credit checks, and to run background checks on colleges, universities, and other places where you may have said you worked or studied.
And what happens if you get caught and then you get fired? What do you do with your next resume?
And that's one of the big issues, right? Because there's that hole.
Right.
You have that hole in your resume because you're not going to put a former employer on there.
And do you admit that you lied on your initial resume, on your last resume? On your last job?
That's the loop that you get into, the vicious cycle you get into. You get caught once and you're almost in trouble forever.
So your best advice?
Best advice is don't lie on your resume. Keep it true. Keep what you've put on there to be accurate, to be true. Sometimes people will say, well, I wasn't lying, it was just a bit of puffery. I over-exaggerated slightly in my job description just what exactly it is that I did.
Give me an example of that. What's puffery?
So you might say, for example, you're a program analyst working for a company, and rather than just say you're a program analyst, you called yourself an architect of the company's computer programs. And you might get away with something like that. But you get into your next job, and then you're unable to do the architecting work that it is that they're looking for you to do, and they say, hey, you told us you were an architect of computer programs. It turns out you were just a program analyst.
Just tell the truth.
Just tell the truth.
So we could have saved these 3 minutes and just said that.
We could have saved the 3 minutes.
But we appreciated the advice.
We could have saved the 3 minutes, but the 3 minutes are interesting, though, because the reality of it is in fact, you could have some kind of crime. It doesn't happen, right? Because companies are not going to report the crime.
Right.
Why? Because they don't want the stain on their record either.
Sure.
Not going to say, so you have an executive officer or something like that who's lied on their resume. Right. You're not going to sue that executive officer. You want to keep it quiet. Keep it out of the public domain, because you don't want to be known as a company who hires people like that, or have your vendors or customers or other people lose faith in you as a company. So they oftentimes keep it under the radar screen. But look, if it gets big enough, for example, maybe you were hired through a headhunter.
Right.
And in fact, that headhunter charged the company $40,000 for you. Maybe they do sue you to get the money back.
It becomes a tangled web for sure.
It's a very tangled web that you weave.
Philip Gordon, appreciate